our winners from the last video. So for the P.P.E and the D20 chonker. And you'll see at the end of the video if you won. So stay tuned. And welcome if you're new. Hey, I'm Little Red Dice, and I'm going to tell you about all our inventory lists of everything that we have here for making our molds and dice. So first, from the last video, we have our respirator, we have all our P.P.E, we have the sleeves, we have the gloves that definitely do not fit me. My dad got them for him and not me, which is kind of mean, but I mean, makes sense, I guess. This is our cups that we use for the different types of things. So with the red solo cups, we use these to actually make our cap molds. We use these light gray ones to put the two resins in there to actually make proper resin. And then we use these big ones to mix the two parts of resin together. And that's what we use the cups for. This is the UV light that we use to cure our UV resin. That's what it looks like. It's just a plain bluish black light. That's it. Nothing really special about it. This is one of the one of the 7 cat molds we have. Works really well. We put our keys in there. We will show you how to make them, make these cat molds at a later date. This is our big giant D20 sprue mold that we have. Pretty much just a chunker D20. These are the popsicle sticks that we have. We have a lot of them, but we only use them for mixing resin and putting the resin out. We have these different animal molds, unicorns, chickens, cows, and pigs for all the excess resin that we might have at the end. We have our pipettes for taking out any excess resin and putting any ink in that we want in a certain spot. We have our silicone mixing cups, which are actually made out of silicone. They're very squishy, as you can see, but we use this to mix everything and pour them because it has a little tip there. And we have our carrier for putting all our molds into the pressure pot, so we don't have to set them on the round floor of the pressure pot. We have the blowtorch that we use for taking out all the bubbles. And we have the actual UV resin, and we use the UV light from before to cure it. And we have the Art and Glow mixers. So we have the resin, and then we have the hardener, and those two go together. So this is our part A and part B, making silicone, and it's just really useful for making our molds, and it's really nice. This is the pressure pot, and we use this to make all the air bubbles in the molds and in the dice, very tiny. And this is our vacuum pump, which will put all the necessary stuff into here so it can suck up, like a vacuum, all the bubbles that are in the mold and dice. And it's really fun, but a little trick that you can do to show people is if you put a marshmallow in here in a bag, something cool will happen. I'm not going to tell you what, but it's a little side experiment for you to do at home. It's very funny, and it's also very fun to eat. Just put a marshmallow in there in a bag, and you're good. I brought in my dad here to explain how a pressure pot and vacuum chamber works, but we're going to talk about the pressure pot first.
Yeah, bud. My name is Philip, and I'm going to go over the pressure pot. So pressure pots are hard to find nowadays, especially with Harbor Freight, which being one of the better ones out there to get a hold of, are backlogged. So we got this Shop Fox paint pot, and we have retrofitted it with the top, all the necessary equipment, and the gassing. So if you notice, on the inside it has a concave bottom. So what's necessary is that you put something down to flatten the bottom so that your molds don't go down. Aidan, why don't you tell me about the...
So the reason why we have this as a stand is because it has a flat surface instead of the dip, kind of like a hill like that, because you don't want it moving around and having to be uneven, because then the resin might move around in there into an unwanted position, so it can make odd bits in it and it'll look bad, and I'm assuming you don't want that. And that's why we made this, and it just goes in there flat and it'll sit there, and that's why people use this. It's very useful, and you can add different layers in order to make it so that you can have as many as you want on there.
Why do you have the wax paper on there?
The reason why we put wax paper on there is just because then the resin won't stick to the wood that's underneath it, and it just makes it easier to clean up, and it's really useful for that. So we just put wax paper on there on the bottom and on the top so it doesn't stick, and it's making it a lot easier than if we didn't have that on there.
So another note, on the lid, on the bottom of the Shop Fox, if you notice, the inlet does not have a diffuser. So you'll either have to buy your own diffuser, or what me and Aidan do is when we stick our carrier in there, what we do is we make sure that this piece is standing over an area that is not going to be directly going down into some open molds, or we put it into a blank area. When you're closing your resin or your pressure pot, it's a good idea to pick both sides and spin. Pick two sides. And what I do is I turn it, I put another two, and then I spin it down again. I personally like to tell Aidan to put it at 45 psi. I know other people use 35 or 30 or 40. We like 45 psi. Our inlet goes here from the air compressor. Whenever we're done, we just unhook it. We didn't have a cap, so we used just an outlet. And it sits in there for anywhere between 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. It all depends on the resin. When we're done, we just hit this, and all the air comes out. We pull to the top. Real simple. All this stuff can be found at Home Depot. Pull it. And at Aidan's favorite time, pulling the dice. Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, I think what we should mention is cover your ears when you pull this off, because it'll be really loud when the air is just coming out all at once. So just reminder, make sure your ears are prepared.
And where can they find this?
They can find this at like Harbor Freight, probably
Amazon.
Yeah.
You can get some really good deals on Amazon if you look. Even if they're used, the top is what you're changing, not here. So as long as the body's good, and a lot of things. One more thing. Some people say that they can't get their pressure pot to seal. The Shop Fox comes with a rubber gasket, not a plastic gasket like the Harbor Freight ones. So this rubber one seals really good. We have, from the minute we started, we put a little bit of red Loctite on a couple of these and some plumber's tape, and never had a leak since. So just some words to the wise.
So, while I still have my dad in here, he wanted to talk about vacuum chambers too. So, we have him in here for this too. So, a vacuum chamber basically just takes all the air bubbles and creates negative pressure, which will lift all the air bubbles up and out of the molds. And we mainly only use vacuum chambers just for when we're making our silicone molds, and not as often for actually taking all the air out of dice, because we already have the pressure pot from before. And that's all we use it for, but at the end we will teach you a trick on what you can do with marshmallows in this. Would you like to talk about your vacuum?
Yeah, so this is my buddy Daniel's vacuum pump. He is a GE repairman, so he has this cool old vacuum pump, and luckily we didn't have to go buy a vacuum pump from Harbor Freight or someplace like that. So we made do with what we had around instead of we repurposed it instead of having to go buy another one. What's cool is that this one brings us down to a negative 29 pressure, which in the silicone takes a little bit of time to pull out, and we use different silicone than the smooth-ons. Other than that, Aidan's got some fun stuff that he's learned at the house here about what marshmallows do.
So right here we have our vacuum chamber. Before you make your molds, just one thing. Before you're making molds and using the vacuum chamber to help you get all the bubbles out, just put a marshmallow in there. We put like 15 of them in there. It's even better. But if you put them in there, put them to 29. Put the pressure pot to 29 bars, and just watch and enjoy your lifespan go up by like 5 years. And of course you're gonna do that. Alright, well, cool. So you've made it to the end of the video. This is where we're going to be going over who won. For the respirator, my dad accidentally hit the button twice to see who won, and we decided since we actually have more than two, we're just going to do away two. So the two winners for the respirator are Cassandra Cunningham, thank you, and Amber Griffith. Thank you for entering, and this will be to you soon. And for the D20, our surprise winner is, drum roll please, we have Christina S. Thank you to everyone who entered, and see you in the next video.